Mohammed Ashraf Haidari, is that your reading as well? That the Haqqani faction, which is known to be more brutal, more barbaric than the more political, external leading Doha faction, and that there are some fissures that we're already beginning to see emerge from Kabul. Is that likely to get worse? Is this just too much being interpreted from the outside? Given your understanding of your country, sir, how are you processing what's happening back in Kabul and Kandahar?
Well, I cannot really comment more than what the ambassador just discussed, and I'm sure others will contribute to that discussion. But what's really going on is a sort of pushkashi, and many factions tied to different regional and transnational terrorist networks and militant networks, and as well as their related state actor friends and sponsors are involved. That's one issue. But what we in the Afghan people are concerned is about the actual formation of a meaningful, inclusive, and representative government that includes all voices, including the women of Afghanistan, which is now more than 50% of our population. And as well as my concern is also about the humanitarian situation that is further deteriorated over the past week, simply because the international community, although they've been talking about it, they've not been forthcoming, with exception of a few plane loads of humanitarian assistance, 2 tracks of humanitarian aid from Central Asia, especially from Turkmenistan. Not much has happened as people are suffering in Kabul. Remember that over 500,000 Afghans were internally displaced, on top of 5 million others, protracted IDPs, and then 18 plus million Afghans needing urgent humanitarian assistance. As this political, issues are taking shape, which the ambassador pointed out.
No, so you're making a very important point, Sushant, Sareen. The Afghan ambassador Haidari talking about how humanitarian issues should really be first in the list of priorities. But for that, you need a well-established, well-settled political setup where leaders are working closely with each other. How real do you think are the differences between Sirajuddin Haqqani and the Haqqani network and Mullah Mohammad Yaqoob? This fight for the spoils of war, in your understanding of the current state of play, how real is it? How bad is it?
So, Rahul, I think these divisions have persisted for a fair bit of time. And in fact, the first time we really saw these divisions emerge was after the death of Mullah Omar had been announced, and there was a bit of a battle over the succession before the Pakistanis finally installed Mullah Mansoor as the Amirul Mu'mineen. And at that point of time, Yaqoob was a bit of a holdout. There were others from the south, Helmand in particular, who opposed it. Then they papered over those cracks. Now, clearly those cracks have persisted, and not too long back, they decided to bifurcate the responsibilities, but the military responsibilities between the Haqqani faction and Mullah Yaqoob. So that is one line of division. But then there are others between the political guys who were sitting in Doha and were the interface to the rest of the world, saying all sorts of what Dr. Christine Fair says about the Pakistanis. Apparently, these Taliban have also learnt it, what she calls pleasant lies, telling pleasant lies to the rest of the world, and the rest of the world getting taken in by it. So there were those guys, and then there were the guys who were fighting on the ground. These were the fellows who had the closest links with other terrorist organizations like TTP, Al-Qaeda, and that entire bunch of people, who have been fighting, according to some estimates, as much as 20,000, some estimates even more. So there are those very clear divisions between the political side and the military side, where the militant guys are saying that, look, we were the guys who won this war at the end of the day. So what is our share of spoils? And then, of course, there are those traditional ethnic and tribal rivalries as well. Now, most of these had been papered over when you were fighting a common enemy. Now you are not. So now there will be these divisions. What we need to observe is whether these divisions are the kind of divisions which you would normally see in any movement or a political party, that once you get power, there is this tussle for office, this tussle for, some of the interesting positions or the nice positions. So there is that factor. Or is this going to escalate into something more? Frankly speaking, I'm not in a position to say. But I think one thing is very clear. If they start acting against the Al-Qaeda, and Ambassador Sood has very correctly pointed out the very deep linkages of the Al-Qaeda with the larger Taliban movement, but the Haqqanis in particular. So if they start targeting these guys, then I think you might see all these divisions and these factional fights boil over. I think that's what you need to look out for.